welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. I'm Anthony Giuliano, and my guest this week is Mary Tyndall. Mary, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today, actually. Thanks for having me, Anthony.
Well, thanks for being here. You and I have known each other for a long time, and we recently reconnected because you were the victim of a class that I taught, a social media professional certificate class. Has there been anything from that class that you were able to use, and it's okay to say no?
No, absolutely. I think it's with social media, I only know a little bit about it, but it seems to always be changing. And so I really appreciated getting an update about sort of the new trends and the ways advertising and all the algorithms are working. And we learned a little bit about LinkedIn as well, which I know you're really an expert on that. And I appreciated learning a little bit more about that and how to use that better. And I have found myself using that a little bit more. It does seem to be a place where there are fewer political arguments and those kind of things.
You'll still find them if you go looking for them.
Yeah, right. And I try to ignore them as best I can.
Yeah.
But so I have enjoyed that a little bit more. And I enjoyed learning from the other people in the class, too. There were some people with a lot of experience in that class.
It was a really good group, and it usually is pretty diverse. That's actually how Podcast Nick and I met, was that he was in that class, too. So
great.
Everyone in this room has been part of that. And you and I also have Homestead High School in common. I'm surprised we didn't run into each other more when our kids were there at the same time.
It's such a big place.
It really is.
I mean, I went there very long time ago. Won't say when, but no, a long time ago in there. And it was about 1,000 students. And so, as you know, it's more than double that now. So it's just really, it's a different place. But my kids had great experience there.
Was either one in band?
They were not. They were soccer people.
All right.
I'm a soccer mom at heart.
Okay. I was out on the band island, which is a pretty big island. But if your kid is in band, you kind of have this group of people you see all the time and you don't see anyone else.
I know. But we love the band field because it's turf. And the soccer kids would go over there and try to get on the turf a lot. So, and we appreciate the band parents.
Yeah. Well, we're going to jump into things after your time at Homestead High School by talking about your career path. Okay. And then a little bit later, we'll talk about the St. Joseph Community Health Foundation for whom you work.
Great.
And then we'll talk about some of the things you're working on. So let's start with career path. You grew up in Fort Wayne. You go to home. I assume you grew up in Fort Wayne.
I did. Moved here when I was 4. And guess what? My dad was basketball coach at Indiana Tech. That's why we came here. And I know you work with them. And so I've been here.
What's your dad's name?
David McCracken.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. And the McCracken name, there's obviously another relative.
His father was the coach at IU.
Yes.
But you have to be a little bit older to remember that.
Well,
but yes.
I know there are people listening to this who would appreciate that reference. Yes.
Yeah, Mac and the Hurricane Hoosiers. So
all right.
That's my claim to fame.
Okay. So you grow up in Fort Wayne, at least since the age of 4. You go to Homestead. When do you start thinking about career path, and what do you do with that?
I did that early because, again, this is going to date me, but Jane Pauley was my hero.
Yep.
And I believe she was doing weather in Indianapolis at the time, and then she moved on, and did all her great work, and we still can see her on CBS Sunday Morning now. And so I thought, I want to be Jane Pauley. Mm-hmm. Little did I know that was a lot more difficult to do than you might think. But I trended toward the communication classes and the speech classes, and I really I worked at the radio station when I was in college. Mm-hmm. And so pretty early on, I thought I would like to be a journalist because I like to write and I like to tell stories.
Yep.
And so that was important to me. So I would say sometime in middle school, I started thinking about that.
Okay. So what do you do with that then once you get into college?
Right. So I went to DePauw University, small university in Greencastle, Indiana. Why did I go there? Because my father went there and my sisters went there.
Okay.
And it was a great place.
Yeah.
I had a great time. I still am in touch with my journalism professor from down there. Just a wonderful man. And it's such a small place. You could easily just hop on the radio station, WGRE, and, do the news.
Yep.
And, I was every different, position in the college radio station and really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So then we also had a lot of opportunity for internships, which were completely invaluable. I never got paid for any of them, of course, in communication, the angst of all communication.
So when you say invaluable, also,
literally.
yeah.
So, no, I did a lot of internships at WPTA and at Wayne here, and one at WTHR down in Indianapolis. And that really helped me get a resume that was worthwhile and helped me get my first job in television journalism out in Lawrence, Kansas. Go Jayhawks.
Did you have any connection to that part of the world, or just landed there without knowing very many people?
Alumni, you know. So there had been DePaul alumni that had gone into journalism in various places, and she helped me make a connection there.
Okay.
So it was great.
So how long are you there, and why do you decide to move on to something different?
Well, I learned I really liked being with my family, you know.
Fair enough.
So I did have some great friends there, and Lawrence is such a fun town. But I really did want to be closer to home, and I had done some internships at Wayne, and there was another college classmate at Wayne, and so I got a job back here and worked there for it was really only about 3 years.
All right.
And then that thing called a boyfriend and marriage called to me, and we went to Chicago for a little bit. So,
Okay. All right. So at that point, did you get out of journalism?
I did.
Okay. And how was that for you? Was that difficult, or were you ready to try something different?
There are some days that I still miss it. I love the pace of it. I love the writing and the that challenge of writing something really concise and short that people can get right away. So I miss that. I do not miss apologies to all my friends in news, but the sensationalism that can come with it and the inability to tell a full story, you know, provide the full picture. And I think we're missing a lot of that these days in our conversations. So I did not miss that at all, but it was absolutely the best background for me to go into communication. Yeah. I learned so much more in journalism than I did really in school in a different way. You know, you have to go cover government meetings. You have to cover your school board meetings. You got to go to accidents and shootings and all kinds of terrible things and the courtroom. And I just learned a lot about the way the world works. And my world expanded in good ways and bad ways. I saw, you know, I lived in a pretty nice little bubble for a while. Yeah. And then you get into journalism and you think, oh, it's rough out there.
For sure. For sure. Well, in the deadlines, Lou Cuccinelli, who was our previous guest, who I know you know, we were talking about the fact that if you can kind of make it in the deadline-driven world that is TV news, you can make it anywhere deadlines-wise.
It really has helped. It has definitely helped. And I think it's I had no idea what social media was, you know, back in 1993. Yeah. But writing those really concise headlines and stories and sticking with the pictures that really matter, whether it's video or still, that is still extremely applicable today. So really good skills to know.
Yeah. So a lot of things we learned as English majors don't serve us well anymore in terms of writing. Some of them do, some of them don't. Yeah. But at least, you know, we adapted.
You're right.
So you're in Chicago. What are you doing there, and what do you do next?
I got married, and my husband was working there, and I was having a really good time because Chicago is fun for young people. Yeah. And I worked at a public relations agency, and that was a great learning experience, too. First, I learned I really didn't like it all that well. We were doing a lot of restaurant public relations, and there was a lot of cold calling, you know, with media. Because back in those days, public relations was really just news media, you know, just how many hits can you get?
Stories.
You just pitch the stories to people you don't know. So that was a little bit like cold calling, but I learned a lot from it and how you write a strategic plan and you know, pitch things. So that was good. Came back then and started working for Mayor Paul Helmke in the Public Information Office, and just had another fabulous experience learning so much about how local government and just a local city works, and really became fascinating to me.
What are some of the great things about that job? What are some of the challenges in that job?
I'm really glad I had that particular job a little bit before social media hit.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I really feel for the social media managers, well, everywhere, honestly. But
you know John Phelps, correct?
I love John Phelps.
John is awesome. He's been on the podcast. He just guest presented for the class that you took part in. And John is one of the most optimistic people I know. And I think you have to be in order to do that job today.
And there has to be some sort of a switch you can turn off. Yeah. And I think he's hopefully learned how to do that, because he is just the most positive person. Yeah. I really, really like John a lot. So, but in that first stint with Mayor Paul Helmke, I was probably pretty darn naive. I was pretty young, but I really felt like we were trying to make a difference and make the city better. And that just really felt positive.
Yeah.
And I did have a lot of respect from my boss. He was exceptionally good to work for and listened to me, even though I was in my early 30s. And so that was really great. I did not have children at that time.
Yeah.
And so having children and trying to balance my life a little bit more, I had my first child the last year I worked for city government that time around. And so that made it hard. That work-life balance, that can be tricky to do with that kind of job.
Yeah, for sure. And working at a time when political party means a lot less, still means something, but you have someone in former Mayor Helmke who had the support, wide, broad-based support in the community.
He did.
Yeah.
And you really only had to worry about the newspaper and TV headlines.
Yeah.
You were not having to worry about just all the time being bombarded by attacks or, all kinds of things on social media or blogs or those kind of things. It was a simpler time.
Yeah, for sure. So your next career move, does that come as a result of the Helmke administration ending, or do you make a move on your own?
Right. I left with him.
Yep.
I was in the mayor's office, said I'm sticking it out to the end, and we did, and never regret that at all. Did a little bit of contract work and some different things. And then, doggone it, I moved again with my husband. Can you believe it? But you know what? He's not in communication, so he makes more money than I do. That's some advice for students out there, I guess, right? If you expect to make a lot, don't go into journalism.
Or marry someone who didn't. Yeah.
There you go, which was really good. He's a math guy, and he fixes computers. He's wonderful. So we had 2 children by then, and we moved to Battle Creek, Michigan, and it was actually a part-time job with United Way of Greater Battle Creek, and learned a lot about the not-for-profit sector and marketing and communications there. It was a great opportunity, had a great boss there, and really enjoyed it.
So then you come back to Allen County working for the United Way.
Gosh, I've hopped around a lot.
Well, buckle up, everybody. We're not
sorry
done.
about this.
So you're at United Way locally. Battle Creek isn't that far away. It's like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But still further than you wanted to be from home, or why do you come back?
Sure. I am just really close to my family.
Yeah.
I just love them to pieces. And my mom was still alive at the time and wanted her to be in touch with her grandchildren. And this is home.
Yeah.
So we came back, and I had enjoyed United Way so much in Battle Creek that I went to work for Jerry Peterson, who was at United Way at the time.
Yep.
And again, enjoyed that and the not-for-profit kind of marketing and communication that you do with that, learned more with that. And then I hopped back over to the city. How can that be? I went to work for John Urbance, who is now the CEO at Greater Fort Wayne.
Yep.
And I had known him previously, and he is fantastic. I wanted to go work for him. He's a great guy.
So what role were you in?
I was as a public information officer.
Okay, so it's PIO office again.
PIO.
Yep.
I was the first time around with Paul Helmke. I was the public information director in the mayor's office. This last time around, I was in the community development division, so I did not report directly to the mayor.
Okay.
Little less pressure, honestly,
for sure.
and nice. And I reported to the division head in community development, which is planning, code enforcement, redevelopment, economic development, those kind of areas.
Okay.
So,
all right. And you're there for how long?
About 8 years, I think.
Okay. And then you make the move to the place where you are now, which is St. Joe Foundation.
Finally, I'm tired.
I'm tired just hearing it.
I know.
Yeah. So, and you've been there. You set me straight because when you first walked in, I thought you'd been there a year, but it's a little under a year. You started in January. So tell us what that organization does. I've had the pleasure of knowing Meg Dissler on and off for a number of years.
Wonderful.
And have a vague understanding of what the organization does. I know it does good stuff, but
a little bit quiet,
Yeah.
It is.
Fill our listeners in on more than good stuff. What does the organization do? What's its mission, and what's your role?
Yeah, great. So the St. Joseph Community Health Foundation was formed when an order of sisters, a religious order of sisters, Catholic sisters, sold St. Joseph Hospital. And they took part of the proceeds from the sale of the hospital and put it into this private foundation and said, we want to continue the good work in Fort Wayne here and make sure that a good deal of the money that came from St. Joe Hospital is now going to go help people in the community. And just so people know, the religious order is based in Donaldson and Plymouth, and they are the Poor Handmaids of Jesus Christ. And that's really where our mission comes from. Their whole mission is about they came to the United States in 1868, and it's really about working with people who are on the margins, the people who we really don't see very often, right? The people we pass by on the street and they don't have enough to eat, or they don't have a place to stay, or whatever other challenges life throws out them.
Sure.
And so it's really quite lovely because the sisters, they don't really put a lot of other parameters around it. It's just like, help people, love people, see their dignity and see their humanity, see every single human being as a person that is deserving of dignity and humanity. And that's a hard thing not to be attracted and want to work for, you know. So that obviously drew me there. We have the board and Meg Dissler, who's wonderful. She's the only executive director the foundation has ever had. And there's 4 areas that we give grants in. So that's primarily what the foundation is doing, is working with not-for-profits and providing grants. Prenatal and infant care, access to health care and wellness. So big supporter of places like Matthew 25. Immigrant and refugee care. And a lot of that comes from the sisters when they came from Germany. They were immigrants themselves, but one of the reasons they were brought here was to care for all the immigrants here. So they have a real heart for people who are other. You know, they're not immediately fitting in.
Sure.
So immigrants and refugees. And then the area that I am specifically working in is nutrition and food security, and how that affects wellness. So the diet that you eat affects, you know, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your possible diabetes, all those kind of things. So.
Yeah. So how does that, give us some examples of some of the things you work on that are in that lane and that affect the community in a positive way?
I'm so lucky. Oh my gosh, everything. I'm so lucky. And that has been really, I really had a lot of experiences just today to kind of cement that in my mind. We had a couple board presentations, and we were talking about the work that we were doing. And the board itself, they're not thinking about who's going to be the president, what party's in charge, and this kind of stuff. And they just want to help people. And I also got to visit, we run a program called Our Healing Kitchen, and those are basically cooking and nutrition classes. That was really the brainchild of Parkview Health and a previous employee at St. Joe, Laura Dwyer. But we give these grants so that, people go out and teach these cooking classes and teach about nutrition. So I went over to Tyler Terrace, which is a Bright Point property, and there were just a variety of people there, and they were so happy to be learning about nutrition and cooking, and they had a variety of different challenges in their lives, these individuals. But they said, one of them in particular, she was in a wheelchair, and she said, I'm just so happy to be here. It's not really all about food. It's about friends. Yeah, it is about friends, you know, and that opportunity for her to hopefully improve her life and to feel like she's connected.
Yeah. So what are some of the big issues in Fort Wayne? You know, the thing that comes to my mind first, and this will probably immediately reveal how ignorant I am on the issue, is food deserts, and the fact that there are folks who live in areas where all they have ready access to is food that's not so healthy for you. Do we have that problem locally, or are there other problems that stand in the way of people living healthier lives?
Well, we have so many problems, and I do think our issues are very reflective of national issues. I'm definitely not an expert, but I have for the last 7 months or so really been immersed kind of in this, so it's fascinating to me. And some of the food desert areas are places where you would think, like Southeast Fort Wayne. Others are really around PFW. There's really not, if you are a student and you need to walk someplace, there's no place to go. And another of those issues is really what then is available instead. And a lot of times it's the corner gas station. And so, it's really affordable to go buy the chocolate donuts, which taste fantastic. But we all know it's not going to...
Or the hot dog that's been on the roller for...
forever and ever. But dang, it's good, isn't it? Yeah. So if that's all you know, or if that's all you're able to really get to regularly, and you have a limited... limited amount of money to buy those, it makes it challenging. The other part of it is there's, just getting ready for a presentation again to the board, that there's a certain amount that food stamps, or what's called SNAP now, will cover. There's a huge area of individuals who still aren't making enough money. They don't qualify for SNAP, but they still are food insecure. And a lot of that comes, let's see, I really need to pay my rent or my mortgage. So I'm going to put every dollar into that, and then I don't have enough for food. So we have all those different challenges, for sure.
Yeah. So your role is, in part, telling the story of the organization and making sure that people know you exist so they can get help or give help to their end beneficiaries. How are you doing that? What tools are you using? What's most effective for you? And feel free to say, I'm still new, I don't know yet, but tell me what you can tell me.
That's part of it. I think I haven't been able to do as much as I would like to. I am a lot of my position right now is implementing a federal $1 million grant that the foundation got, and it has to do with implementing the Double Up program. Okay. So what we're doing is if you have your food stamps and you go into a grocery store and you buy $10 worth of carrot and apples and celery, then you get half off. It's only going to cost you $5 with this Double Up. So the remaining amount of that gets paid to the grocery store through the Department of Agriculture and the grant that we have. Okay. So we're really encouraging people to stretch their food stamps and their SNAP dollars, but also to choose those really highly nutritious foods. So that's been a large part of what I've been trying to do. And part of that is getting into different retail or farm market venues. So I haven't had quite as much time to do the communication as I would like to, but I'm definitely going to need to ramp up this Double Up marketing and communication. And it's a different sort of, it's not paid advertising all the time, although now it's all mixed up. Advertising and public relations, it's all one and the same these days. But so I'll be needing to do a lot more of that. I just boosted a couple posts on Facebook about Double Up and, did the geographic areas around the stores where people can use Double Up, how does it work, those kinds of things. Working on the website for Double Up, newsletters and material. One of the advantages is we're partnering with a national company that has a lot of this branding. I would have liked to give you all some business here. That would have been great, but we didn't have to because we had the whole package sort of just handed to us. Sure. They've tested the messaging, they've tested the brand. So it makes it pretty easy from that standpoint.
So here's a big question. This is a national issue. It obviously affects Fort Wayne in a significant way. How do you change the story about the way people think about nutrition and food? Because you have all these competing messages. And, we're still, in our DNA, we think we're hunter-gatherers, that we have to consume all the calories we can in order to survive, when we really don't need to do that, when we sit on our butts most of the day. How do you change that? I know that's a big question, but what type of work is your organization doing? What do you think about when you think about that problem, and how do you solve it?
Super, incredibly hard. And then add in onto that, if you're working with people who have some barriers or have lower income, then there's even more challenges. They don't have time to think about that if they're going to two jobs. For sure. And they don't have time to go to the least expensive grocery store that still has good produce and get that. And it's extra challenging for people who have a lot more stress on their lives. So I think, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but a lot of it goes back to relationships, right? And I think we're still learning that through this pandemic, that relationships is where a lot of it's at. And so these healing kitchen classes, you develop a relationship with, most often it's somebody in a nonprofit, say, that you have worked with before and you trust. And then you have the other participants with you who have been clients or live in the neighborhood, and you develop the relationships and you talk about how you're going to try to eat healthier. And you can't always do it, and we say that too with being real reasonable. Yeah, sometimes we get the donuts out of the convenience store. We don't want to do that very often, but so I think it comes down a lot to relationships and having somebody that people trust. That they can say, yeah, this is how you live your life. Hopefully the big advertising, the big marketing gets them drawn in, gets them to learn more. And then it really takes that one-to-one or a group, I think, to make a true lifestyle change.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. I'm not even in the ballpark as you in terms of expertise on it, but I would think that the community piece is huge, and some of it is breaking familial cycles of poor nutrition.
Absolutely.
And getting different messaging in front of people, and the trust thing, as you mentioned, I think is huge.
And dealing with some cultural things too, right? So I was the same age as a couple people in this kitchen class I went to today. And we were talking about how our moms were obsessed with Jell-O, that was like the thing. And so sometimes you have to find either the cultural or the age things that people are dealing with and the foods that they're used to eating and adapt to that. So.
Yeah, my mom's famous one was that she didn't want me to drink Coke. She wanted me to drink Sprite because it was healthy because it had lemons and limes in it.
There you go. And those were real lemons and limes.
So marketing works.
It
people.
does.
Yes.
I know. We really, children of the 70s and 80s, we had some interesting meals, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. The food for astronauts.
Yeah. Exactly. Hamburger helper.
Oh, man. So so what else are you working on? What other big projects are taking up your time, your energy, keeping you up at night, making you excited, maybe a combination of all those things?
So I'm going to do a little plug for some of my volunteer work, if I can.
Yeah, please do.
And the 2021 Diversity Awards are back this year.
Okay.
They went away with the pandemic, but they're back October 22nd at Ivy Tech.
Okay.
Free.
All right. So tell us more about this. What is this event?
It's fantastic. So it is to honor the contributions and accomplishments of immigrants and refugees in our community.
Okay.
And I'm a board member for Amani Family Services, which if you know about them, they work with immigrants and refugees.
Yep.
And it also really fits in nicely with our work at St. Joe as well, because we do a lot of work supporting immigrants and refugees. So, sometimes there's negativity around people who are different or speak different languages with different backgrounds. And we would like to really shine a spotlight on, look at the amazing contributions that immigrants and refugees make in our community by adding to the workforce, by paying taxes, the food, the culture, the dancing, so many wonderful things.
And Amani does a welcome event that is built around food, correct? Where people are encouraged.
They just, that was part of, thanks for paying attention to the social media. That was just part of welcoming Fort Wayne, which is sort of a community-wide. The Y does a lot of things with it as well. And they just worked on supporting the immigrant-owned restaurants, which is something we all love. And it's a great entree to learn about different cultures. So they do that. And then this really has in the past been part of Welcoming Week. We just got started a little bit late this year. So we moved it to October 22nd. Anybody who wants to go should go to welcomingfw.org.
Okay.
And it's free, fw.org.
Welcomingingfw.org.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And it's free. And it will be a brief program just honoring, we're still taking nominations for people who want to nominate an immigrant or refugee or somebody who has supported them. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, and I hear sometimes people voicing skepticism, well, Fort Wayne doesn't have that many immigrants, which isn't true.
No.
What are some of the more populous populations of immigrants that we have in the city?
Well, I think most people know that we have a lot of Burmese residents here, and I've been getting to know a little bit more about their culture, which is really fantastic and a incredibly resilient people with a lot of farming background. So I've actually been working on some farm markets with them. They like soccer, too. What do you know? My soccer mom role comes in. No, that's probably overgeneralizing, but a lot of kids from Burma enjoy soccer,
well,
so that's really fun.
You do have to find those common touch points,
which is
right?
fantastic. Sports, food, music, dance, those are all the things we can connect about, and and that's why I really love working on this event, because it just exposes me to people. I think on our committee, we have people from Peru, from Poland, let's see, Mexico for sure, a lot of different countries and backgrounds. And life is so much more fun when you get to learn from people like that. So I hope other people take a chance to do that.
All right, so you're working on that event. What else is on your plate?
Oh, my gosh, it's making me busy. I'm an empty nester now.
Well, then you have all kinds of time. You can save the world now.
I know, I don't really like it. But yes, let's see. What else is on my plate? Just the general work at St. Joe, working on newsletters and trying to amp up some more storytelling. We do have Father Greg Boyle coming in on October 8th, too, and that's another free event. He's a Jesuit priest, and if you get a chance to pick up his book, it's amazing. He works with former gang members in Los Angeles and runs one of the largest rehabilitation programs really in the world. It's called Homeboy Industries. Okay. His stories you talk about a good storyteller. You should really hear him tell stories. You're crying because he's telling these horrible stories about these poor people who have been abused and why they chose to go into the gang life because they had such a hard life. And then the next minute, you're just laughing hysterically. And so that's been really fun, too.
So October 8th, where will that event take place?
That is over at what I still remember as the Scottish Rite.
Yeah.
That is the St. Francis Performing Arts Center. And St. Francis is co-sponsoring the event with the St. Joe Foundation. It's free. It's at 1 o'clock. We still have a few seats left. We're trying to social distance some.
Okay.
We have almost 600 people already signed up.
Oh, wow.
I know.
And if people want to find out more about that event, where do they go?
They should go to sjchf.org, which is St. Joe Community Health Foundation.org.
All right.
Not the easiest, but.
Okay, excellent. So that's plenty. You have your full-time job, you have volunteer stuff, you have events.
I'm not doing this all by myself, just so you know. I'm doing little tiny pieces of all of it.
Yeah, well, so let's shift to the speed round of the show.
Oh, okay.
So, Mary, you have 2 boys, is that correct?
I do.
Okay. And if you were talking to them, and you probably are a little bit, maybe
They don't
maybe subtly,
talk a lot, but yeah.
about career stuff. And if you're talking to others about success in a career, what do you think is most important? What have you learned that you want to pass along, not just about careers and communication, but all kinds of careers that you think people should know, that they should pay attention to if they want to be successful or fulfilled in their own career?
You know, my dad always said, and I think it still holds true. You spend more time going into the office or a job than almost anything else, so you better darn well like it, you know, and no amount of money is worth it if you're miserable. And I honestly, still to this day, believe that. So I think that's one of the most things and if you don't like it, change. And fortunately, we're in a world where you don't have to work for 40 years at the same company. You're not going to get penalized for that anymore. Change if you want to. And also look for the good people. A lot of my jobs that I've enjoyed the most may not even been because of the subject or topics. It was because I had a fantastic boss or a great team around me, you know, that was positive and looking to do some good, whether you're making widgets and adding things up or, I mean, my husband's not in the not-for-profit world. He's in the for-profit world, always has been, fixing computers. But dang, that's an honorable job too. You got to fix those computers and help people. And, you know, any job, you find the meaning in that, I think, is where for me, at least, it's always been. Yeah,
for sure. And I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of that comes from people. I've read it before that people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. But I think they really quit people.
They quit people.
When they don't feel affinity for the folks they're working with or, you know, just aren't having enough, you know, fulfillment in their job.
And it takes time, and I think that's part of the problem, to change a culture or turn things around or help the person that you think is being standoffish in the office but really has a lot more talents that they could offer. And so, I completely agree. People quit teams or cultures or
Yep. Well, great advice. Enjoy what you do, and if not, go do something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Second question. The St. Joe Community Health Foundation is a quiet organization that does really important work. I'm sure you have had this opportunity many times over the past 9 months, but when someone says, what does your organization do, and you want to present that succinctly, what do you say?
You know, I thought about that before I came here, and I forgot to write it down. I thought, oh no, where's my elevator speech? So now I should have had it written down. I really do try to emphasize that we're a private, not-for-profit foundation that invests in other community organizations that work with people in the margins. And we like to say people in the margins because that can be a variety of different kinds of people, either low income or facing all kinds of barriers and challenges to living a good life. So I do also kind of like to throw in there about the poor handmaids of Jesus Christ because their values and their mission is really what drives us.
And is that what makes the organization different? Because I think I'm gonna give you a challenge question. The people in Fort Wayne say, oh, there's all these organizations that are doing the same thing. What is the particular lane that you fill, and how do you differentiate from some of those other organizations?
Absolutely. And I would say that just coming to the foundation, I know that my boss, Meg Dissler, has done an incredible job of working with the other foundations and grant-making agencies in the community. So they all really coordinate really quite well to make sure that we're not overlapping too much. Are you doing a lot of food assistance? Okay, we don't need to do that. Who's not doing immigrant and refugee work? Well, you're not, so we need to pick that up. So I do think there's a good deal of collaboration. Some of the other, we're a smaller We're not a very huge, not like the Kellogg or the Ford Foundation or anything like that. We have 5 employees, and we can be more grassroots in nature. And that's how I like to look at it. And we actually have an initiative coming up where we're going to try to work with individual champions that live in communities with lower incomes usually, and try to find grassroots organizations to invest in and grow them, and listen to people instead of tell people, not tell people, hey, you need a grocery store here. Well, maybe they don't want a grocery store there.
Sure.
So that's how I look at us as grassroots, and I hope doing a good job of listening.
Okay. And I may have missed this. You may have said it, but what's the geographic area that the foundation serves?
It is Allen County.
Yeah.
There would be some exceptions to that, but for the most part, it's Allen County.
Okay. So when I was making a circle with my hands,
Indiana,
I should have made a rectangle.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Great. Okay. Last question. You changed jobs mid-pandemic. And you were,
Can you believe it?
And you were working for a public entity at the start of the pandemic, and now you're working for a small private organization. Throughout all that, I keep saying, well, we're almost out of the pandemic. Well, who knows where we stand with the pandemic. But what have you learned throughout the past, 18 or so months that you didn't know before that you think will stick with you moving forward and you think is worth talking about? Lessons, things that that shape the way you work or think.
I mean, I feel like everybody says this, but it's so true for me, and that is just how important that face-to-face and the relationships really are. And I think perhaps up until the pandemic, we had been moving more toward do everything online, do it all on social media, send a newsletter, do it electronically, be efficient, don't ever travel and go to a conference or have face-to-face. And I don't think we're going to stop doing those things. There are a lot of efficiencies there, but I do think we're pulling back. Yesterday, I got to go to the local food forum organized by the Northeast Indiana Regional Food Partnership. I hope I got that right.
You have a lot of acronyms to remember in your life. So,
I know. But it was face to face, and I accomplished a lot more in those meetings because I saw numerous people that I needed to talk to and connect with on projects, than I ever could have done in 10 Zoom meetings. So I think that's one of I hope one of the greatest lessons from the pandemic, that face-to-face still really matters.
Yeah, and I think it's about accessing the best of both, but not over-indexing on the virtual stuff because there's still value to being in the same room with other people and learning from them.
And honestly, all the divide that we're having in our country right now over so many issues, I think is a lot of times due to the fact that we're not face-to-face.
100%.
Yep. And 100%. So if we could just get back to people being people and having conversations and saying, yeah, I may not agree with everything you say, but you're still a person. All right. It's all good. But we're not there yet.
Well, and I think that's an opportunity in a city the size of Fort Wayne because you have enough people that you're going to run into people you disagree with.
Absolutely.
But you have to put yourself out there and you have to be willing to, and you have the opportunity. And I think there's some accountability in being more of a decent person than you are online because chances are you're going to run into these people over and over again.
Right. That's true. But it's also really hard to look at somebody and not also then learn and take into account why sometimes they may make decisions that you don't agree with, be it their background and the way they were raised or their religious beliefs or the work situation or their mother's sick today or whatever it is.
Or their experiences.
Right.
Yeah, just what they grew up with and how they grew up. Yeah.
And we're missing a lot of that. So I hope people can get back to that in some form.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you are doing a lot of work that is helping people do that. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, so to recap, welcomingfw.org.
.org for the Diversity Awards.
And then sjchf.org.
That's right, for Father Boyle.
All right, excellent. Well, Mary, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to this episode. We will be back next week with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.